What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. So today we're going to be taking a close look at some of the numerous PvE activities and things to do in Lost Ark. This video is sponsored by Amazon. They wanted me to give you a bit of a rundown for this particular aspect of the game, and I'll be doing just that, focusing exclusively on some of the PvE stuff you'll be doing, which includes things like dungeons, raids, and your island estate known as the Stronghold. So if you're just getting started with the game for the very first time, or you wanted a bit of a refresher, hopefully you will find this video useful. So here's a basic rundown of each of these things. Starting us off is Chaos Dungeons. Now this is the primary starting point in the gearing up process, and what you'll likely want to do first thing once you unlock it. Chaos Dungeons take you through these three separate stages where you have to fight back waves of enemies. Now these will take place in differing locations as you unlock the higher tiers with different types of enemies on them, but fundamentally it's all kind of the same thing. You will see groups of enemies, you will smash those enemies, and you want to try to do it fast. You simply have to beat a 5-minute timer on each stage to progress on to the next one. Now, like I said, Chaos Dungeons drop that base level gear, and this is what you'll be starting out in that post 50 endgame gearing process. Not only do they drop the gear, they also drop the resources needed to upgrade that gear, as well as accessories and a handful of other useful items, which is pretty much the case for all of the endgame PvE activities. It all drops stuff that you need for some other aspect of the game. On average, a Chaos Dungeon takes roughly 5 to 10 minutes to finish. These can be done twice a day, and you can do them solo or in a group. And just in general, you will want to do the highest level of these that you have unlocked and can actually complete. As the higher level you do, the better the rewards. Okay, so the next major type of content are known as Guardian Raids, and these are actually really similar to Monster Hunter battles. You're dropped in on a map and must search around the various zones looking for the boss. In fact, there's even a flare item in the game which will temporarily show you the location of the boss. Now, when you find it, you and your team have to just try to take it out before the timer expires. And yeah, that's it. It's basically just a big old boss fight. Typically, these bosses will have several large telegraphed attacks, and they'll also go through phases as you take down their health. Now, ideally, you will eventually want to learn the different phases and telegraph attacks of the boss so you can know what's coming and when to dodge, especially since getting hit with these can incapacitate you for some time, which will open you up to taking lots of damage. Now, occasionally there will be some trash mobs in the area, but for the most part, it is just a time trial boss clear, essentially. And these can be quite tough because there are several restrictions put in place. For one, the game limits the number of times you and your team can revive, along with the consumables that you can use. So really, you do have to try to play carefully, try to avoid damage, and especially try not to die. Like Chaos Dungeons, Guardian Raids should be done twice a day. They reward accessories and other useful items like gems, cards, books, and runes. Most importantly, though, is that they drop upgrade materials that are not bound to your character, meaning that you can send them off to an alt or even sell them on the auction house to get some gold, which is primarily what makes doing Guardian Raids so valuable. One of my favorite endgame activities, though, is the tower. This is a solo challenge activity where you have to basically climb the floors of a tower. These will get progressively harder and grant you better rewards. So you'll start out on floor 1, you're given some objective, normally kill groups of enemies or a specific enemy or boss, and then if you complete that within the set time limit, you will grant the reward and then unlock the next floor, so on and so on. So for example, in my most recent run, I entered floor 1, they asked me to destroy a stone. As a reward, I got this deck of cards, and then I went on to floor 2 where I had to destroy these hordes of enemies. That it gave me another deck of cards. Floor 3 asked me to defeat a named enemy for the deck of cards. Floor asked me to defeat large groups of enemies, another deck of cards, and then finally on floor 5 I had to defeat a boss, and as a result I got this proficiency potion. So it basically continues this way. You'll get rewards every time you clear a floor, you'll unlock the next one, and usually that 5th floor is going to give a unique and most of the time more valuable reward. The climb continues, and as you do, it gets more difficult, even requiring higher item levels in order to complete them. But one of the major reasons to run these towers is that it gives you these skill point potions as a reward, and you basically need these extra skill points to max out your skill trees, as just hitting level 50 doesn't cut it. You still need more skill points to max out the abilities that you're using. The next major type of PvE content you'll be doing are abyssal dungeons. These are basically just harder end game versions of the types of dungeons that you encounter while leveling up. Now, for each of these activities that we've talked about so far, the Chaos Dungeons, Guardian Raids, Tower, and Abyssal Dungeons, you are doing all of this to collect gear, accessories, currencies, materials, and a plethora of other useful items for character progression. Also, for most of these, as you progress and get higher item level by upgrading your gear, you then unlock access to higher tiered versions of each of these. Your gear progresses, you get to do harder versions of each of these activities, which gives you better gear to upgrade, unlocking harder versions of those activities, and that process continues. That is basically the ladder that you climb, the gear treadmill in Lost Ark. Other PvE content in the game comes in the form of these world events. These include things like Chaos Gates, Field Bosses, Adventure Islands, Ghost Ships, and a variety of other just world activities that you can do, and that becomes periodically available throughout the course of any given day. In fact, there's an in-game tracker that's located in the upper left-hand corner of the UI that shows you exactly what events are currently active and what events are coming up. It shows you where the event is located as well as the rewards that they give. So depending on what type of resources or currencies that you're after at any given time, like, what aspect of the game are you focused on progressing and trying to acquire these things for, that is going to inform which of these world events and activities that you want to participate in. I also want to briefly touch on the sailing and estate or stronghold systems. So first off, sailing, you unlock this around level 35, roughly halfway through the leveling process. Initially, you just use it to travel to the different continents, but later on and in the end game, there are just a host of other activities and things to do that are associated with sailing. Most of the game's map, in fact, consists of this giant ocean, and that ocean is dotted with various islands all over the place. So you're going to sail around going to these islands, and they basically function as just additional locations to get quests that reward currencies and resources. And then there's also the Stronghold system. This is basically instance player housing. You can add items to it to decorate the island, so you can set up like a bed and a chair in different locations and stuff like that. There's a cosmetic aspect, but it also serves a functional purpose, letting you unlock various upgrades and forms of progression. This comes from a few different aspects. First, there is the laboratory. This is where you get a lot of upgrades and progression for your stronghold specifically. The research for this is done here. Things like development of the manor, expedition storage, opening up different regions and cells, building development, unlocking new recipes and blueprints, and a host of other things are all done at the laboratory. And for the most part, these require wood and ore that you will be acquiring through gathering. Next is the workshop, and this is essentially the game's crafting system. Here you can make potions, bombs, grenades, capes, and a host of other useful items. For the most part, these require herbs and mushrooms that you get while gathering. And then lastly is the headquarter system, and this is basically a sailing themed quest system. You basically have followers that you acquire, go out and complete these tasks. They will reward you with various resources and items, and you can turn some of the stuff in to get other items in the game. That's really what this game is. A lot of different currencies and items that you're collecting by doing different things. And that more or less does it for this video, a look at some of the basic end game systems in the game. What's really interesting though is that this is really just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the PvE and the end game. There are a host of other things that you will unlock and gain access to, and as we move through the various tiers and updates in Lost Ark, because remember, this is a game that's already launched in other regions, we're going to start off with the base version. We're going to have access to these core systems that I talked about here in this video, but more and more stuff will be coming out over time. But even more so, more and more stuff becomes available as you progress your character and upgrade your gear, getting that higher item level and unlocking higher tiers of stuff. But when it comes to this PvE beginner's guide, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, hope you enjoy the content, and I'll see you in the next one.